Hello and welcome to MacStories Unwind. I'm John Voorhees, and I've got Federico Viticci with me. Hey, Federico.
We are so back, John.
We are so back.
Another week. We're back
Another
here.
week, one more. We're on week 30. Week 30, Federico. Think about that.
Yes, you keep track of the weeks.
I do,
Only
it's my
18 left, am I right?
Is
Is
about
that
right.
the idea?
Your
I have
math
a
is
question
good.
for you, John. An opening question for you.
Okay.
I think I am looking for Raycast replacements on macOS.
Oh, interesting.
Let me explain why. I was using Raycast primarily because of it was one of the few apps that allowed me to plug in any MCP client I wanted with
Right.
this is a complicated conversation, but like MCP servers can support multiple types of authentication. Raycast was one of the few that supported all of them. I wrote about, however, Open Minis on MacStories a few days ago, and that has completely replaced my usage of Raycast as a sort of model agnostic AI app on iOS and iPad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And by doing that, it also removed my need for Raycast AI, and therefore I realized, well, I no longer need Raycast AI. I'm using Paste as a clipboard manager now across all of my devices. Really excellent clipboard manager for Mac, iOS, and iPadOS. I'm back here just using Raycast as a launcher now. And so I'm kind of wondering, maybe at this point, since the company's focus seems to be on AI, and I don't really use Raycast for AI at this point, I was wondering, like, should I maybe just consider another launcher? And right now, top of my list, like my two sort of baseline criteria, it needs to be able to launch apps quickly, and it needs to show me an emoji picker.
You don't use something like Rocket on the Mac? I would use Rocket.
Never use Rocket. Should I?
Yeah, you should, because all you have to do is type colon and then start typing a word, and it'll drop in, and it works in any text field.
But what if I want to type a colon when I'm writing?
You don't have to worry about it. It's colon at the beginning, so it's colon and then letter, so you never type that in.
It's okay.
When you're writing. So it's colon,
Right.
and then you start typing like bear, and it'll show you the bear emoji.
My only other alternative was Nilean's app.
Yeah, but that's a good app. It's nice, simple, and fast.
Nice, simple, and fast.
I don't really have a good suggestion for you because I
don't want to use Spotlight because every time I use Spotlight, there's some weird bug, even in 27. Like, it's slower than I want it to be.
Well, yeah, it's one of the things that, and this is like goes to my review, it's very hard to evaluate Spotlight right now because every time a new beta drops, it completely reindexes my Mac, and it's bad for days. And then it settles down and it's good again. And even in Tahoe, I had the experience of it was very good during the early days of Tahoe. Then it got worse over time. And so I have a hard time trusting Spotlight. But for now, I am using Spotlight, partly because I'm doing the review and partly because I don't really need something that does as much as something like Raycast. I think if you want, there's no reason not to stick with Raycast just because even if you're not using the AI, if you use the free version of Raycast, you can do all the launching stuff.
Yeah, but
you could do the clipboard.
Here's the thing, and this is like a personal thing of mine.
Yeah.
I don't like having apps that I rely on a regular basis that expose more features and settings that I need them for.
Yeah, no, I know. And I get that. That's why I have not on it myself right now. And I'm using Spotlight primarily as an app launcher, not the other new features for the most part on a regular basis. There are lots of options like, a Launchpad and Alfred, for instance. I don't know. I've kind of gotten away from all those apps. I just feel like Spotlight's a simpler option for someone like me who, for the same reason as you, all those apps do way more than I would ever use. So I've been sticking with Spotlight as a result. But if it slows down, I tend to switch to something else. And maybe like Nilean's app would be the best one there because it really doesn't do anything. It does do some other things. It doesn't do a lot more than just the launcher part of it.
Yeah, the obviously Nilayan's app is called Tiny Start,
Right.
and I think I'm just gonna go with this one for now.
Yeah, it's probably a good
So
idea.
something that I forgot about this app that now that I'm looking at the settings, I really appreciate
I
again
think it
is
handles emoji too, right?
it handles emoji,
Yep.
and it's really fast and really compact. Now it's got a shortcuts screen, which I don't think it had when I when I
When you
when I
first looked at it.
when I
Yeah.
first looked at it. So now you can pick one of your shortcuts from the shortcuts library and assign a shortcut to it.
Mhm.
And this was already available in version 1. You can manually add your frequently used folders and
That's a
just
good one.
call them from Tiny Start and open them in Finder, which is exactly what I want.
Yeah, that's a very good option.
So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this a try. Um, yeah, okay. Well, that was just an opening question for you, John.
All right. Well, I have a question for you, Federico. Is
Okay,
that I
we're full
want
of
to hear?
questions. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I want to hear a little bit about how the early part of your week went with your installation of fiber to your house. Well, I mean, you already had fiber, but you got a
I already
fiber
had
upgrade.
fiber.
You got a whole system upgrade basically.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think you had the experience that I've had too many times in the past with ISPs, is that
Yep.
it didn't go super smoothly.
Yeah, long story short, the installation was fine. My apartment is already reached by a fiber cable, multiple fiber cables actually. I discovered there are
Oh, really?
I discovered via the electrician that helped me with the other part of the setup that actually our TV signal is delivered via a fiber cable, and like the fiber cable reaches this like box by the entrance of our
Yeah.
apartment, and then from there it turns into like a coax cable,
Mm-hmm.
but actually from the basement where like this room full of like electrical switches and outlets and power meters are from there at the ground floor level to our apartment is delivered via fiber, and then it becomes like a regular antenna cable in the
Hmm.
living room and in the other rooms. Anyway, I was already reached by fiber. It was just a matter of upgrading our plan with our ISP from 1 gigabit down and like 200 megabytes up
Oh, you only
to
had 200 up. I didn't
I
realize that.
only had 200 to 10 gigabit down
Wow.
and 5 gigabit up, I think, something like
Wow.
that, for like almost half the price. This is what happens when you are grandfathered into a plan. Obviously, your ISP doesn't want to tell you. Like from the
Oh, I
ISP
know.
perspective, was like, look at this idiot paying double the price for
For
1/10
years.
of the speed for years. And I only found out that we were finally reached by the 10 gigabit line and that we had an opening. This is a whole separate conversation. It's not like the whole building can upgrade to 10 gigabits because we
Oh,
have
really?
limited slots, and I
Oh,
believe there were
interesting.
only 2 left. So now it's just 1 left.
Wow.
Yeah, I got lucky. Anyway, from the ISP perspective, was like, we're not gonna tell this guy.
Of course not.
I
It's
only
paying
discovered
double.
I only discovered thanks to a neighbor who told me like I cannot believe that you of all people do not upgrade to the 10 gigabit. So anyway,
Now it's a matter of personal pride at that point.
exactly, it really was. So the technicians come and the installation itself is fine. It's just a matter of taking
Yeah.
out the old modem, placing the new modem from the ISP,
Yeah.
my router, my Deco BE85, which you also have, I think,
Yes, I do.
was already certified for 10 gigabit. I just had to unplug the Ethernet cable from 2.5, plug it into 10. That was
Yep.
it. The technician just had to swap the modem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, my ISP is also using a TP-Link modem, which gets
Oh, that's
rebranded
good.
with the colors and logo of the ISP, but it's obviously a TP-Link inside.
Sure.
And then they get to the final part, which is they have a phone. They log into like an admin app, and all these modern modems, they explain to me, they have this auto provisioning system where it used to be back in the day. I'm sure you recall, John. I was little. You were not so little, but I have these memories. Like it used to be that you had to go into your modem and input specific parameters to connect to your ISP.
Right.
like an address, a username, and a default password, stuff like that. Now these modems, they are auto-provisioning, which means as soon as they get on the network, the ISP sees them remotely and they auto-provision a setting for your account and your subscription.
Yep.
So long story short, this modem is not auto-provisioning.
Oh.
And essentially the installation was 10 minutes. The next 2 hours was these folks on the phone just saying, I don't understand why it's not auto-provisioning. So that was basically it for 2 days.
Was it did you have to get a new modem? Was it broken or was it
No, the
something
modem was
else?
fine. It was an issue on the ISP side with just making sure that my modem was lining up with their system remotely and sort of accepting in this handshake process between the ISP and my physical modem in my apartment, handshaking the new connection and saying, yes, this customer now has access to the 10 gigabit line.
Right.
Took 2 days, and eventually I woke up like, what was it, yesterday morning with a text message from somebody saying, hey, when can I call you about your new fiber? Like, I need you to try a few things. And after some back and forth, multiple reboots and whatnot, eventually all the LEDs turned green and I got my connection. And of course, there's another side to this, which is my equipment side. I had to get, obviously, my routers were 10 gigabit certified. I had to change all the equipment that I had before for 1 gigabit to higher tier equipment. But I only got one 10 gigabit Ethernet switch for my apartment. I'm also I had a whole other installation happen to get, as I mentioned before, internet in my storage unit downstairs, like 5 floors down.
Did they have to put the line in for that, or was it already there?
Yeah, man, no, they had to put it in.
Oh, wow.
140 meters of Ethernet cable. The one that's certified to go into conduits with a special protection around the cable so that electrical cables near don't interfere.
So it's Ethernet cabling, it's not fiber cabling.
It's not fiber cabling.
Yeah,
It's Ethernet. So the way that it works is fiber comes into my apartment.
Yeah.
And it exits straight under my TV, where all of my home automation stuff, my Apple TV, all of my things are. From there, there's one single 10 gigabit TP-Link 8-port Ethernet switch.
Mm-hmm.
From that is sort of like the single point of truth, right?
Right. That's where everything happens and moves
Everything
around,
happens.
gets the
So obviously there's the modem, there's a router, and there's one cable that goes into the switch. From that switch, multiple things happen. One cable exits right here in my office. Another cable goes back to the entrance where we have our own electrical sort of like wall, like the power meter and everything.
Yeah.
From there, it goes outside the apartment through the front door where the elevators are. Then because there's another like box in the wall with all that basically maps all of these cables going into each apartment. From there, it goes down 4 floors.
You don't have the wire like dangling through the hallway outside your apartment, do you?
No. It goes
in the wall.
In the wall.
Okay.
We have these conduits in our brick walls in Italy.
Yeah.
And they have to be, everything has a specific like specification, right?
Sure.
There's like the 5 millimeter conduits, the 5 centimeters one. It's a whole mess. Anyway, it goes down 4 floors into the room where all of the central power meters for every single apartment in the building are.
Yeah, that's a lot of wire down there.
From there, it needs to switch again. Imagine like it's like a tube map system.
Yeah.
It needs to switch again, and it goes into my storage unit, another floor down. So in total, they ran 140 meters of Ethernet cable.
How is the connection? That's a long way to run Ethernet cable.
Perfect, because I specifically asked to get one of those fancy optic Ethernet cables for long distance and low
Yeah.
latency.
Yeah.
With Ethernet, I believe the electrician told me like it starts to become a problem like after 250 meters or something. So 140 is fine. I get excellent ping from the stuff that is now downstairs.
Yeah.
But yeah. So long story short, I right now here this computer, this MacBook Pro, I'm not getting 10 gigabits. I could, but I don't want to get it. Like as we know, 10 gigabit equipment is very expensive and very
It
rare
is.
to find, and I don't want to stop using my monitor. I have my Asus 27 OLED monitor that has a built-in KVM functionality that I'm using to provide display and Ethernet to connected computers. But it tops out at 5 gigabit per second. That's including other USB accessories. So effectively, I'm getting 3 gigabits right now.
Okay. No, that's still very good. I mean,
I could get 10 gigabit if I bought a modern Thunderbolt 5 dock
right.
with 10 gigabit. I could, because the cable that exits from here lets me do it.
Right.
Downstairs, I did not buy stuff to get 10 gigabit.
No, I don't think that would be overkill. Probably
I'm getting 2.5 downstairs, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Our service is 2 gigabit per second, and I could go up to 5, but when they built our condominium, they only put in Cat 5e, which I believe can only go up to about 2, and
Yep.
I get 2 to 2.3, and but in order to do 10, I would have, or get the 5 that is the max at AT&T, I'd have to completely rewire the Ethernet in the condominium, which isn't really worth it, because 2 plus is still plenty for me. What I'm really jealous of all this, Federico, is how cheap your internet service
Oh,
is.
it's like 35 euros a month.
Yeah, I mean, I pay like 100. I pay 110 for 2 gigabit per second. Okay, a month. So, just to give you an idea, Europe has more competition for their ISPs, and both mobile carriers and wired is a lot cheaper.
It's actually funny because on the 10 gigabit lines, essentially my ISP has like a monopoly on it. It's not. So the way that it works in Italy, and this was not the case when I was a kid, but it is now. A regular fiber, regular cell networks, they have an open market, right? So even if a particular ISP, in my case, it's called TIM. Yes, it's called TIM.
Right.
It means Telecom Italian Mobile. That's what it means. Even if TIM physically laid the network and the cables, they are under an obligation to release it in the open market, right? So, but that's not the case for the 10 gigabit line. You can only get, I believe it's just TIM and another small provider. That's another thing that we have in Italy, like these local, almost like boutique providers, right? That have like a much smaller operations, only in certain cities. When you get a direct number to call them on the phone. Obviously, when I call my ISP, you just get an AI bot on the phone now. But I didn't want to go with the boutique ISP. Just, I don't know. If something goes wrong, I can go to a physical store and complain about it.
Right.
These boutique like providers, I don't know. It just doesn't make me feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, it's great that you're able to get that. I mean, it's like, and the other thing too about your building is that because you're in a building with a lot of other people, you obviously, can you get any provider to your apartment if you wanted to?
I could, not on the 10 gigabit, but up to 2.5, because we don't have a 5 gigabit line in Italy. 2.5 I could.
Okay, because sometimes with apartment buildings in the United States, it's like there's an ISP for the building. It's like the landlord. I mean, I
think it's illegal here to do that.
Okay, well, I mean, it should be illegal here because it's like a little mini monopoly. But once again, Oh man! All right. Well, where are we, Federico? Should we do? Can I do a quick pick?
I'll do it. Yes.
All right. So I mentioned, I think last week that I was thinking of going to see the Odyssey, and I did. I
I'm
went.
jealous.
I
Okay.
went on Sunday afternoon.
What kind of screening?
It was a large format screen, is
Okay.
what it was called, but it wasn't 70 millimeter. It was
Okay.
not IMAX.
Okay.
But it was the best theater of among the nearby places. We
Nice.
weren't going to go like drive a long way for it. But anyway, I mean, I originally had wanted to go on Saturday, and everything was just like totally sold out unless
Mm.
you wanted to sit in like the front row and stare straight up at Matt Damon's beard. But instead, we went on Sunday afternoon. It was during the FIFA World Cup finals, so I think that's why there were tickets still available. And so we went, and it was a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's nearly 3 hours long. I could do without the 30 minutes of trailers and commercials beforehand because it made for a very long afternoon at the theater. But the movie is so compelling throughout that it really didn't feel like a 3 hour
Mm.
movie. It dragged maybe a little bit, about three-quarters of the way through, but overall, it was just story. It was really well told. Christopher Nolan's really outdone himself in this. I think Anne Hathaway, I'm a little middling on her performance,
Mm.
but as an actor, but Matt Damon was really good. All Tom Holland, all the other actors. It's quite a cast, and it was a lot of fun to watch because it'd been so long since I've even thought of that story. I mean, I read the Odyssey in high school,
Yeah, me
but
too.
it kind of all came back to me as I was watching the story, and it was really, really entertaining. So I highly recommend seeing it if you can. And from what people say, 70 millimeter IMAX is supposed to be the best way to watch it, and that if you can get that, that would be great. But I think from what I've read, that's sold out in a lot of places for weeks on end, at least in the U.S. So.
Mm. How was Robert Pattinson on it?
Good, really
Yeah,
good.
he
Yeah, yeah,
plays Antinous, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It
Okay.
was good. I mean, everybody in the whole cast was quite good, and it was really, really well done. I mean, it's because you think about it, it's like one of those things where they're really moving back and forth between lots of locations, whether it's following the
Yeah.
voyage on the boat, or whether they're
I
back at the
I saw
castle.
I saw some interviews about the movie, and I know that they shot a lot of scenes down in Sicily, in southern Italy.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they shot between, I think they said, Greece, Turkey, and Sicily, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, obviously they went on location, and yeah, I really I keep thinking about that like non IMAX but 70 millimeter showing in Italy, and I don't know. I'm
Yeah, you
jealous
should try
though.
to go sometime. I think it is one of those. There are very few movies these days that really demand a big screen viewing, but I think this is definitely one of them. So,
All right.
all right, Federico. Well, that's it for another episode of Mac Stories Unwind. We will be back in another week with more picks and stories. Until then, check us out over on Mac Stories. We've been doing some writing over there, and of course, we're on social media where Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.